First, thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Chad White. I'm the head of research at Oracle Marketing Consulting. We are a group of roughly about 500 digital marketing consultants inside of Oracle. So we're essentially an agency that's buried inside of Oracle, and we help our clients with a wide range of digital marketing challenges and opportunities. And we do a lot of email marketing. That's probably the biggest chunk of our business, but we also do web and loyalty and social and mobile. So we kind of do a little bit of everything, but certainly email marketing is our home base for sure. Yeah, so obviously personalization and privacy kind of go hand in hand. They're kind of opposite sides of the same coin, really. And for well over a decade, consumer surveys have shown that when you ask people if they want more privacy protections, they say absolutely. And if you ask them in the very next breath, would you like more relevant brand communications, they say absolutely. So they want both of these things. So I don't know that consumers fully understand the interplay between these two things, but they want them both. And that definitely makes things challenging. Specifically in email marketing, if you ask people why they unsubscribe from emails, perennially the number one and number two reasons are get too many emails and they're not relevant. And frankly, getting too many emails is a form of not being relevant. So relevancy is super important, and so personalization plays into that very heavily. Now, the thing that is really kind of changing things in terms of this discussion is Apple's mail privacy protection and their opt-in language. Like if you look at the opt-in rate for MPP, it's somewhere in the high 90%. And so you would think that would be an indicator that, hey, consumers actually value privacy way more than relevancy. I would argue that that's not really true. The way that MPP is presented to folks is, I think, egregiously unrepresentative and insincere. Apple makes it sound like you're essentially downloading malware onto your device by engaging with email while not having MPP on, which of course is not true. They make it sound like you're downloading viruses. Now, when Apple turns around and it asks for the ability to track your user behavior, they talk about relevancy usually multiple times in that opt-in, and they don't talk about any of the dangers. So the little bit of insincerity going on there. There's a little bit of like the market kind of playing things, Apple definitely playing things, trying to be this like warrior for privacy, and that it's not really totally sincere. And that, I think, is muddying the waters when you look at this balance between privacy and personalization, which again, consumers want them both. And it's been positioned in this adversarial way that's not really good for anybody, because consumers aren't going to get what they want, and brands aren't going to be able to serve their customers and their prospects the way that they're expected to. So it's bad for everybody, I think. So I've already mentioned MPP, and it's definitely having a lot of effects on the email marketing industry. It seems like a relatively small thing, but it actually touches on a wide variety of aspects of email marketing. So first of all, it blocks forward tracking, which is not that big a deal, but it also blocks device identification, which a lot of designers would use to understand what code is supported among their audience. So it makes email design more difficult. It also regionalizes location information. So it uses relay servers to bounce your IP address around so that you can no longer tell where a person is with much detail, which certainly, a lot has been said and written about location-based privacy. So that actually seems to me like a really positive change, but it does make it more difficult for brands to, say, for instance, populate their emails with like their nearest store location, which is among the, the biggest uses of that information in email marketing. So it regionalizes things, but not so much that it makes it hard to comply with, say, state laws here in the US, because we now have different privacy laws per state. So you'd still be able to tell that this person's in California, for instance, and so you need to be compliant with CCPA and CDPR. It also prefetches email content, and that causes a wide variety of problems, but kind of the most transparent problem there is that it disrupts live content. So content that gets populated at the time of open gets prefetched, so that that content, instead of being fresh at the time of open, is now increasingly dated. So that's a bad thing for subscribers. They're now getting more dated information. That's not so great. But the biggest thing that MPP does that everybody is very well aware of now is that it obscures opens by flooding ESPs with tons and tons of fake auto-generated opens. So essentially tons of garbage data. And that causes a variety of problems depending on how ESPs internalize that data. Here at Oracle, we have decided for the most part to remove that data from our open rate reporting. And so our open rates among our users have fallen because we're taking out some real opens along with all those fake opens from Apple. But it creates a real new steady baseline, especially now as we're here past a year of MPP adoption. So it should be stabilizing. And you'll know that when you look at your open rates, that's very representative of what's actually happening. Now, other ESPs have decided we're just going to add all the auto-generated opens on top, and it'll create a new stabilized open rate that's way higher than it should be. You can kind of pick and choose what works best for you in terms of ESP reporting. And then even some ESPs are now starting to try to normalize that data so that it compares apples to apples with pre-MPP open rate. So lots of different approaches to that data, but it makes it definitely hard to make comparisons, and especially across ESPs. But for a lot of our clients, which tend to be really large senders, probably the biggest problem that MPP causes is inactivity management. Traditionally, when a subscriber stops opening, stops clicking after a period of time, that is a clear signal to brands that, hey, that person's not engaging anymore. They're withdrawing permission. Let's stop sending them email, or send them less for a period of time. And then if they still don't respond, hey, let's stop emailing them. Let's respect the fact that, hey, they're clearly tuning us out and they're not interested anymore. Now in the age of MPP, that signal can be very misleading. And that's creating a lot of problems with how brands are managing inactivity, really trying to respect the fact that some of their subscribers become disinterested and would rather not get those emails, but they haven't bothered to unsubscribe. Apple is making that really hard for brands to respect those signals because they've obscured those signals. And unfortunately, our visibility as marketers is highly impacted, but the mailbox provider's visibility hasn't been impacted at all. So they can totally see what's going on with their users, and now we kind of can't in terms of engagement. And deliverability algorithms haven't changed, and spam filtering algorithms haven't changed. And so if brands don't respect subscriber engagement, they're inviting serious deliverability problems. Yeah, so ESPs are absolutely reacting to the changes brought on by MPP. So a lot of ESPs have already made the shift to relying more on clicks for a lot of their features. So for instance, send time optimization algorithms used to largely run off of opens, which wasn't the best, but it was a high frequency signal. And even though you really want to send emails not when someone's likely to open, but when they're likely to engage. And so the reliance more on clicks into those algorithms, I think, have been kind of across the board a more positive thing. It does make those algorithms slower to react because clicks are a less frequent signal than opens. So changes in behaviors are much slower to adjust. but it's definitely a much stronger signal. We've seen the same kind of shift with subject line optimization algorithms, those also shifting over to clicks. Again, you need more data, more power, and it's slower to adjust, but I think that's a stronger signal as well. Now, I've mentioned the problems with deliverability, and in terms of KPIs, our email deliverability services group for our MPP subscribers among our clients, we've been leveraging a lot of cross-channel data to better determine which subscribers are engaged. So we're kind of, drawing some dotted lines in behavior because email marketing has always been very connected to offline behaviors and behaviors in other channels, even when we can't draw that nice solid line that connects those behaviors, the trackability is not perfect. And so, with our clients, we're looking at their subscribers and saying, hey, is this a subscriber who's, highly engaged, buying in stores? Is this a subscriber that is visiting, their website a lot or highly engaged in their app? And we're making some assumptions that if they are, they're probably using, they're probably engaged with email in ways that we can't totally see, because it's very common for subscribers to get emails, not even open the email, but see the subject line and then, go to a browser, type in the URL of the brand and do some shopping or do some activity or what have you. And the same thing with opening up a mobile app. We also know that folks, will get an email, they'll open it up and they'll read it, and then they'll tell a spouse, hey, can you go and do X, Y, Z? Or again, they'll go and open up a browser or open up their app and go directly without clicking through. It's frustrating for email marketers, for brands. We would love for people to follow that golden path and be opening and clicking and converting in a nice, clean, easy to measure way, but that's not what people do. A lot of people, kind of go off into the woods and they convert and they engage in the way that makes the most sense for them. And so, our teams are trying to kind of, sniff out those behaviors and draw some correlations. And that's not nearly as good as opens, but that is a way that is definitely kind of trying to fill that gap. Now, that's what ESPs are doing. I think the bigger question here is, what makes sense for brands? What are the KPIs that they should be paying attention to? And I think here, a lot of the industry discourse has been very dismissive of opens and the roles that it plays for a lot of brands. Everyone is not selling via email. Everyone is not a retailer. There are lots of brands that are, CPG brands or manufacturers that aren't selling direct. There's lots of media companies that aren't selling anything, that have subscriptions. There's lots of B2B brands, that have very long sales cycles. And so there's huge periods of time when they're focused on engagement. And that's not just clicks, it's also opens. And heaven forbid you're trying to sell advertising in your emails, opens are super important. So there are tons of brands where opens are still critically important to how they do business. And they're not just going to upend everything that they do in their business and in their email marketing programs just because of Apple deciding to obscure opens. So they need to make use of the opens that they can see where there are reliable opens and do some extrapolating to better understand how their larger audience is engaging with their email programs, instead of trying to maybe force their subscribers to engage in click behavior that wouldn't come natural to them. There's definitely becoming more important to try to get clicks, but you don't want to manipulate your subscribers by moving a bunch of content that you used to provide in your email, moving it to a landing page just to force people to clicks. That, I think, would be a bad outcome. But I think we need to recognize that opens still serve a really important role in a lot of email marketing programs because not everybody is selling. And so it's not like people can suddenly abandon opens and embrace some other type of metric. It just doesn't always translate that way. Yeah, so I think that's like a huge question. Everybody wants to know, like, is this the end of open rates? Is this like the beginning of the slippery slope, and I don't think that it is. All signs point to Yahoo following in Apple's footsteps in some way. They've expressed for a while now that they don't really like opens, and they don't think that they're accurate, and for a variety of reasons, they would rather move away from them. So I think in some capacity, Yahoo will do something. So it'll be in the same ballpark of what Apple has done. Now, the bigger question is, what is Gmail going to do, and also, what is Microsoft going to do? And there, I find it very difficult to believe that, especially Gmail, would ever block opens. Now, to my knowledge, neither Gmail nor Microsoft have said anything about this, but it would seem wildly out of character for Gmail and Microsoft to do this. And it kind of comes down to who do they serve, right? If you look at Apple, this is a consumer company. This is a company that sells to consumers, not really so business oriented. That's the opposite of what Gmail is, and Google. Gmail and Google are all about business. And so it's all about who do you serve. And so for Gmail to suddenly block opens would be, very, this is going to cause a lot of problems for their customer base, which are businesses. The other thing that I think is maybe just as powerful is that Gmail and Google have pioneered engagement-based spam filtering. They're the ones that said, hey, look, you can't just send email to folks that don't hit the don't unsubscribe and don't hit the report spam button. Like, that's not good enough. You have to send email to people who not just tolerate your emails, but engage with it. And we're going to measure, engagement by looking at things like opens, but lots of other signals too. And so they pioneered that. And so if they were to block opens or obscure opens in some way, they'd be walking away from 13, 14 years of spam filtering innovation that really has redefined in the mind of consumers what spam is. It's thanks to Gmail that the current definition of spam in consumers' mind, that's where that comes from. Yeah, so I mean, it does seem like we're very much headed towards a cookieless world, a third-party cookieless world in the future. And in many ways, that's a good thing. Certainly for email marketing, I think that's a good thing because it puts brands back in the position of realizing that they need to have relationships, permission-based relationships with their customers and with their prospects. And that's exactly what email marketing does. And so we're seeing brands start to lean more into email marketing because they want to get that relationship, and they see that email marketing is a fantastic way of collecting information about their customers and prospects in a way that's transparent and builds that relationship. And then they can use that data, across their digital marketing. So, definitely it's going to be a really rough transition for a lot of brands, very highly disruptive. But in terms of how the end of third-party cookies going to affect email marketing, I think it's a plus, and it brings more brands back to that mindset of creating relationships. In terms of where email marketing is headed and how it's evolving, I think that, despite what we're seeing with, privacy laws and privacy concerns, people still want highly relevant communications from brands. They really expect it. And so I hope that no one is discouraged by the, the extra challenges that things like MPP, really put on brands. It does not absolve us of the need to send highly relevant communications to consumers. Those consumer expectations have not changed at all because of MPP or GDPR or anything else. And so really we have to kind of lean into how can we do a better job of collecting data the right way and using it in ways that are acceptable to our subscribers and our customers. So I think in the years ahead we're going to see way more adoption of things like customer data platforms. They get all of our, subscriber and customer and prospect data all in one place, so we can get that 360-degree view of what they're doing, not just in email, but also on social and mobile and on the web and in the app, and get all that data together, because that's what our customers really expect. They think we're already doing that. And so that'll be a bit of a catch up that we're doing. And that will allow, much greater visibility and a great better understanding of what our customers are doing and how they're truly behaving. And then that opens the doors to things like omni-channel orchestration, where we're using data across channel to inform our behavior and the other channels that we're messaging folks through, again, which is an expectation that's kind of already there. So again, that's kind of catch up. And then as that certainly gets more and more complicated, I think AI and machine learning will help us out along the way to be able to connect all of those dots in a way that makes sense and that scales, because the scaling will become quite complicated. So I think, through the end of this decade, I think things like CDPs, omnichannel orchestration, and AI and machine learning are really going to be pivotal to kind of meeting that new privacy challenge and continuing to deliver the kinds of customer experiences, that everybody expects from brands.